is going on, everybody? What is going on? The Catch fam, my name is John Dawson, and in today's video, we will be hopping into an 8-team full PPR mock draft for the 2023 fantasy football season. It is mock draft season, guys. Let me know in the comments down below any mock draft that you guys need for your specific leagues. 8 teams, 14 teams, full PPR, half PPR, super flex, 3 wide receivers, whatever it may be. This is what I do during the month of August. This is my favorite time of year. As long as you guys are subscribed to the channel, I'm more than happy to run a mock draft for you guys and put together a video like this one where I give you guys round by round roster construction advice and go through why I'm drafting the players that I'm currently drafting. So be sure you guys hit that subscribe button on the way in. All we do here is free fantasy football content all year round, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. Hit the like button on the way in whether you guys are new or not. And like I said, any mock draft requests, drop them in the comments section down below, and any other comments, questions, or concerns pertaining to the 2023 fantasy football season, drop them down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Without further ado, let's hop into today's mock draft. All right, so for today's purpose, we're sitting at the 1.7, and obviously in an 8-team draft, your roster is going to be more stacked than any other league out there. I mean, some people play in 6 teams somehow, but what we are looking for in an 8-team league is the most upside and the most positional advantage that we can gain throughout the entire draft. So, Travis Kelce's here at the 1.7, which he is. I'm drafting him. I want the best possible tight end in all of fantasy football, and I'm going to go for as much upside at quarterback as possible, but I do think going quarterback at the 2.2 is a little bit of a reach. So we will see who's available here. We're either going to go, probably with the wide receiver right here. You just have a plethora of good names. Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, all sitting here. If we went running back, the top available players are JT or Nick Chubb. I think we can find some better value through the end of the draft. But let's go Cooper Kupp here, even with, the hamstring injury popping up. When you look at how many fantasy points on average Cooper Kupp has scored with the Rams, with Matthew Stafford at quarterback, it is absolutely ridiculous. He has never had a game that did not result in double-digit fantasy points in full PPR when he has played with a healthy Matthew Stafford. Cooper Kupp is a smash pick at the 2.2 right there. So let's move right along. All wide receivers so far gone in the second round. For us sitting at the 3.7 and the 4.2, we're going to take a quarterback early. Now, you could argue you can find, still good value at quarterback late in your drafts, and I'm not opposed to that, but I want the most positional advantage, like I said at the beginning of the video, that I can possibly acquire. So it's going to be interesting to see when quarterbacks do start going. Obviously, if we can land Mahomes, we're going to smash that so we can stack him with Travis Kelce. But if not, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, I'm perfectly okay with as well. You might find this interesting, but in 8-team leagues, I actually like to fade running back a little bit because, no matter how you swing it, any position you're going to be able to find good value towards the end of the draft, right? So for me, I do think it's a smart idea. As much as I talk about positional advantage in 8-team leagues, I think it's a smart and perfectly okay idea to pick one specific position and kind of fade it and just stack up at every other position, get that positional advantage at quarterback and tight end, and there goes Mahomes off the board. So let's go Jalen Hurts here. And, just go heavy at wide receiver, get your quarterback, get your tight end, like I just said. And, unless there's just a screaming value at running back in this, for this specific example, we're just going to pass for, most of the draft and stack up at wide receiver. So one thing I didn't mention at the beginning of the video was the roster format. So we've got 1 quarterback, 1 tight end, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a flex, kicker and defense, and 5 bench spots. So sitting right here at the 4.2, I'm taking Devonta Smith. I'm stacking him with Jalen Hurts. And don't get me wrong, in redraft formats, overall, you don't have to necessarily stack players, but it can be beneficial throughout the year. I mean, much more beneficial in best ball formats, but sometimes when it just falls to you, I think you don't pass it up. So right now, our quarterback's locked up and Jalen Hurts, tight ends locked up, and Travis Kelsey, and two stud wide receivers in Cooper Cup and Devonta Smith, who was your wide receiver 9 in fantasy football last year. So I think he's an absolute steal. I think we've had a lot of good value fall to us throughout the draft, but man, would have been great to land Patrick Mahomes at the 3.7. Nonetheless, we've got our two primary wide receivers out of the way, a quarterback and tight end out of the way. So, we do want to start to somewhat think about the running back position. Let's just keep an eye on a couple players. Jahmyr Gibbs and Kenneth Walker, the two available running backs that absolutely stand out to me at the moment. But I won't be surprised if at least Jahmyr Gibbs is selected before we draft again. So let's keep an eye on some wide receivers who do bring upside to the table. And there goes Jahmyr Gibbs off the board. I mean, I knew there was just no way he was going to fall to us. But, DJ Moore, Christian Watson, even Brandon Ayuk, Christian Kirk, those are the type of names that I'm looking for, even in an 8-team league. Amari Cooper, another name that I really like. So we'll keep an eye on those wide receivers. But like I said, if Kenneth Walker is available at the 5-7, we are going to go ahead and take that first running back off of the board. But I think we can take a little bit of a breather at running back after that. Try and get guys like DeAndre Swift, Rashad White, David Montgomery, Antonio Gibson, whoever it may be. There are other good names here, so we'll just keep an eye on both the running back and wide receiver position. We don't have to worry about quarterback or tight end for the rest of this draft. I don't think you really need to go out and get two guys. You could do that. Don't get me wrong, positional advantage, huge in 8-team leagues because the teams that you're going to be going up against on a regular basis are just going to be absolutely stacked. So, if you do want to get a second quarterback kind of in the mid rounds, I'm not completely against it, but you don't want to hurt the rest of your roster by making that move. But I will say, like if Justin Fields falls to us in the 7th round, like that, that's an example of where you're going to potentially consider it, right? If there's just a quarterback that you can't pass up at a tremendous value, that's when you want to think about it. Outside of that, I wouldn't go crazy with those moves. So moving into the 6.2, I'm probably targeting DJ Moore with this next pick. I like him as a very solid flex option going into the year, and that's where he would, be on this roster as Justin Fields is off of the board. Looking at running backs, Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, Dameon Pierce, J.K. Dobbins, Miles Sanders. I do like that tier of running back, but I think we lock up our flex player in DJ Moore. Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Terry McLaurin, Drake London, Christian Watson, the next top wide receivers on the board. DJ Moore is my guy right there, and I do think he brings the most potential upside. So happy to select him right there, and we will move right along. So at the 7.7, 8.2, we're knocking out two running backs unless there's just a wide receiver right there that we feel like we can't pass up. So Christian Kirk, it could definitely be available right there. And he's a player that I've absolutely been in love with all off season long. We might consider him, but this has been a pretty heavy running back draft already. Like I said, I'm not afraid of fading a specific position, and running back was that position for us in this draft. But we also don't want to hurt our roster too much. So we'll just kind of see who gets selected here as the 6th round wraps up. We have our 3rd tight end off the board. And we have kind of seen a couple more quarterbacks gone. Fields already went, but Burrow and Herbert are gone as well. So if we were going to make a power move, Trevor Lawrence on the board, I'm not completely against him. When we look across the board, every team except for one has a quarterback at this point in time. So we'll probably have a solid chance to land Trevor Lawrence if we wanted to, but I don't think that's going to be the best move for this specific draft. So couple good players gone here. Drake London, Christian Watson, a couple players that I like. Moving into the 7.7, there are a number of running backs that I like, but I'm going to draft for upside in an 8-team league every time. So give me DeAndre Swift with this next pick if he's available. And yes, I'm taking him over Miles Sanders and Alexander Madison and J.K. Dobbins, who just went off the board. But DeAndre Swift brings that upside. He's tied to the Eagles offense. I mean, we now have 3 Eagles offensive players. I'm not completely against that, but Swift is going to have a good year. Don't be worried about DeAndre Swift. This offense is going to completely change things for Swift. He's going to be utilized as a pass catcher. defenses are going to have to account for Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, and a dual threat quarterback in Jalen Hurts. So give me Swift all day long. Plus that backfield, with Kenneth Gainwell, Rashad Penny, and even Boston Scott, it's going to allow DeAndre Swift to play to his strengths, and he doesn't have to be on the field 100% of the time. But when he is, he can absolutely hit a home run every single time. So we could go Brandon Ayuk here. We could go Christian Kirk, but I'm going to take another running back. I'm going to take Rachaad White in full PPR. I think White could have a massive season, especially if Baker Mayfield ends up winning the quarterback battle there over Kyle Trask. Because when we look at Rachaad White's rookie season, he had 58 targets and 50 receptions. And last year, as a starter, Baker Mayfield checked the football down more than any other quarterback in the entire NFL. And you might say, well, this offense looks weak. The quarterback position doesn't look great. Offensive line might worry you. Well, actually, all those things for a running back in a full PPR format sometimes can end up benefiting that running back, believe it or not, because this offense is going to be playing from behind a lot. And like I said, Baker's going to be in a position where he needs to check the football down a lot. So we're not looking at Rachaad White as a 3-down runner. We're looking at him as a running back who brings that pass catching upside to the table. So give me White as a RB3 all day long. All right, moving into the 9th round here, Christian Kirk is my top target. He's probably going to get selected. So I kind of move into a different tier of wide receivers at that point. I mean, I still really like Hollywood Brown. I still like Mike Williams. I think they're perfectly fine. Chris Godwin and Michael Pittman we have to consider as well. But I might fade things for a little bit and see if we can land Jahan Dotson or Zay Flowers, because once again, I think those guys bring more upside to the table at the end of the day. Looking at available running backs, David Montgomery just went off the board. I really like him in this tier. I still like Isaiah Pacheco as well. And there goes Christian Kirk off of the board. I mean, Christian Kirk in the 9th round as your wide receiver 4 is literally one of my favorite things I could possibly see. Brandon Ayuk, I really like in that same breath as well. But moving along, there goes Mike Williams. This is kind of making me look at Hollywood Brown as my top target. I don't mind Hollywood Brown as a wide receiver for whatsoever. And then we'll probably try to land Isaiah Pacheco as our RB4 if possible. If not, I'm still okay with Antonio Gibson, James Conner, names like that as our 4th running back. And there goes Hollywood Brown, a great value right there. So we could go Chris Godwin, we could go Michael Pittman, or we could just go for some power moves at running back. So I'm actually going to go James Conner here. Love him as an RB4. Completely fine with that. Now we have 3 empty bench spots. We have 3 wide receivers as well. So let's try to land some wide receiver value. I'm not as concerned about running back anymore. I feel like we have 4 solid selections off of the board. We want to try and gain some depth at wide receiver in a full PPR format. But don't forget, as much as I love Travis Kelce, as much as I love Jalen Hurts, we can still go for some continued positional advantage. There are a lot of good names available at tight end: Kyle Pitts, Dallas Goedert, Darren Waller, Ingram, Freiermuth. Quarterback, not as exciting, but maybe we go for like Anthony Richardson with one of these last 3 selections as well. Nonetheless, for right now, I want to try and get a solid wide receiver off the board. And I do feel like Chris Godwin is the best available wide receiver, but I also think you should consider players like Jordan Addison and Jahan Dotson right here. But let's go ahead and take Chris Godwin off the board. When you look at Godwin last year, finished as a top 20 fantasy wide receiver, your wide receiver 19 on the year, barely played in week 1, then missed the 2 following weeks. But outside of that, in full PPR, he gave you double-digit fantasy points in every other game except for week 18 against Atlanta, where he just missed it at 9.5 fantasy points. So I get it. Tom Brady's not the quarterback anymore. I understand that. We were looking at Baker and Kyle Trask, who we just talked about, but still, I think Godwin has to be the primary target in this offense, especially, when we're looking at things from a full PPR format in fantasy football. Mike Evans is still going to be, a factor here, and he's going to be the red zone guy, but I think that Godwin is still a really good value where he's currently going in mock drafts. So Moving into the 11.7 and 12.2, two more players left. Typically in a redraft format, I'm okay with anything's at four running backs, but I think in an 18 league, you can go for five. If we finish this with one quarterback, one tight end, five wide receivers, five running backs, I am fine with that. If we want to sacrifice that final running back or wide receiver for a quarterback or tight end, I am okay with that as well. So looking at available players, I think Antonio Gibson is really the number one player that stands out to me who's available right now. In terms of tight ends, Kyle Pitts got selected there. Darren Waller got selected. Goddard got selected. So, I like Ingram. I like Fryermuth, even Njoku and Komet. But ultimately, I think we look for a running back or wide receiver here. So there goes Gibson. So I'm okay with that because I don't think I really particularly need a fifth running back on this roster. But we do want to go with the best available wide receiver, just kind of a tough pick here. So I think what you do here is you just go for the player that gives you the most potential upside. And for me, believe it or not, I'm going to take Anthony Richardson off the board. We talked about it earlier. Go for the most positional advantage possible. And yes, Prescott, Watson, and Tua are on the board. Love all those names. Realistically, probably like them more. But in an 8-team league, go for the upside. Richardson behind a quarterback like Jalen Hurts certainly brings a ton of upside to the table. A little bit of a reach there. I understand that, but nonetheless, I'm okay with it. All right, moving into our final skill position player selection of the night. I actually wanted to draft Sky Moore there, but he is gone. And that doesn't really surprise me. So you can really go in a couple different directions here. Mike Evans still available. Looking at running backs and tight ends, I think ultimately we just go with the best available wide receiver. And I think that's going to be Deontay Johnson. While the ceiling might not be incredibly high for Deontay Johnson in a full PPR format, he still brings a ton of value to the table. And you have to expect positive touchdown regression out of Deontay Johnson going into the season because he didn't score any touchdowns last year, which is absolutely ridiculous after having 7 in his rookie season and 8 in 2021. But he still had 147 targets last year, 86 receptions, 882 receiving yards in total, 10.2 yards per catch. So, yes, the ceiling was low, but you have to expect things turn for the better in terms of fantasy scoring for Deontay Johnson this coming year. So, looking at these last two picks, we're just going to draft a kicker and defense and call it a day. So, when we look at this draft, this is why I like drafting with our community. This is why I like drafting with, the members of our Discord and our fellow YouTube subscribers because they make things so much more competitive. I was thinking that, Hollywood Brown or Christian Kirk might fall to us there in the 9th round. Did not happen. I was thinking I could land Sky Moore at 12.2. Did not happen. Was thinking I could land Gibson at 11.7. Did not happen. I was thinking I could get Pacheco or Zay Flowers at 10.2. So, nonetheless, good competitive draft today, and ultimately kind of prevented us from walking away too confident in this team. And I still think we were able to pivot and make some good selections overall. So I'll take the Patriots defense here, and then I'll draft a kicker, probably Jason Myers, Graham Gano, Nick Folk, Cameron Dicker, whoever it may be. Don't stress about your defense and kicker. You guys can stream those all year round. So give me Nick Folk. And that'll wrap things up. So there's one last look at the team. Jalen Hurts, Anthony Richardson at quarterback. Tons of upside there, but also a lot of consistency out of Jalen Hurts. Travis Kelce at tight end. Get that positional advantage early. It goes miles in 8-team formats. Kenneth Walker, DeAndre Swift, Rashad White, and James Conner, a solid running back core. One note here, if we didn't want to go Anthony Richardson there, for example, and draft a second quarterback, I'm okay with taking Brian Robinson off the board. I still think he's a really good value right there. So there's one little note for you guys. And really with that final wide receiver selection, I like Deontay Johnson a lot right there. Don't get me wrong, but I prefer Sky Moore. I do think Elijah Moore is okay in that range as well. Nonetheless, wide receivers, Cooper Kupp, Devonta Smith, DJ Moore, Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson. I think we landed pretty good value throughout this draft, and we got a ton of upside and pretty good positional advantage potentially with Cooper Kupp and Devonta Smith. at 2.2 and 4.2. We faded running back today. I'm okay with doing that in 8-team formats. Kenneth Walker, DeAndre Swift, Rashad White, James Conner. Do we have a ton of positional advantage here? Not necessarily, but we do have a lot of upside with Walker, Swift, and in my opinion, Rashad White, then James Conner is a great RB4 at the end of the day. So our starting roster would be Hurts, Kelsey, Cup, Devonta Smith, Kenneth Walker, DeAndre Swift, and we'd be flexing DJ Moore, Rashad White, Connor Godwin, and Johnson are all viable flex options. And, we had some fun. We took Anthony Richardson as a QB2, kind of reached for him, but hey, like I said, go for the upside in an 8-team league. It will really help you out in the long run. Nonetheless, that'll wrap it up for today's mock draft. Please let me know in the comments down below. Like I said at the beginning of the video, any mock draft requests that you guys have, I'm happy to put together a video just like this one for you guys. So let me know regardless of format, and I will get it put on the schedule. As long as you guys are subscribed to the channel, which brings me to my next point. Hit that subscribe button on the way out. Hit the like button on the way out and check out our links down below. Join our free Discord. We have free mock drafts being ran on there all day long, and you guys can post your own mock drafts on there at any point to get practice with our community. Follow us on Instagram, all of that good stuff. And guys, I truly appreciate you guys hanging out today and watching the video. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys have any questions pertaining to the coming 2023 fantasy football season. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And with that, I will say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.